Hello everyone, my name is Guy Harris and I am the Publishing Director of Lift and Hoist International magazine and Lift and Hoist Australasia. And I'm delighted to say that I'm here with Ross Moloney, who is Chief Executive Officer of the Lifting Engineers Equipment Association. Ross, how are you?
Yeah, really good. I am aware to an extent that I wasn't previously aware before all this happened, how bendy my nose is. I broke it as a teenager playing football. So if you're watching this, yes, I have got a bendy nose. No, you don't need to go to an optician.
Well, I have to say it's nice that you're still resembling your LinkedIn profile image.
Yeah, that's a very old photo. I need to
Yeah,
do
well, you
something
haven't been
about
tempted to go to the local supermarket and buy some clippers or get your wife to cut your hair then?
that. No, well, I've done that. I've had a domestic haircut. Yeah, much hilarity followed. But yeah, that's all right.
Okay. I've
You
resisted that temptation.
join
I'm
me.
looking a bit more hirsute than normal, but
Yeah, you are. You're looking smarter than most of us that know you,
all
probably.
right. Well, thank you.
Maybe.
I don't know. Something's going on, but I'm not liking it either way. But so how are you finding working from home?
Well, I am. Before I joined LEEA, I ran a little consultancy for 3 years, so a lot of my time was at home and there. And obviously, when I was writing up a PhD, I spent a lot of time on my own, if not necessarily at home. So, uh, I mean, I don't mind it, and we are a lot more connected than we ever have been. So I'm
Sure.
probably on Zoom calls or team calls maybe half the day, and then the other 4 and a bit hours are actually getting on with stuff. So, I mean, my experience of lockdown's quite different from other people's in that, I'm still working. We are, as an association, are really busy. My wife's a GP, so she's really busy. So,
Mhm.
it's amazing how quickly different becomes normal. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Well,
I'm
that's
excited about it finishing.
that's partly what we wanted to talk about. Obviously, we wanted to address some of the things that are happening at the moment, the challenges that our industry faces, and obviously how you're coping with that as an association and how you're assisting your members. And obviously, we talk quite a bit anyway, and we thought
Mm,
this would be a good opportunity just to have an open conversation, much like we ordinarily do on the phone,
yeah,
not
yeah,
via Zoom, and discuss some of these issues and what the new normal looks like, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I think if I start off on the impact and what the industry is seeing, I think it's probably easy. At the moment, what we all need is a crystal ball. I think that's the thing that's really causing stress and tension, in personal life, but also in the working world. It's
Sure.
when is this gonna end? And I
Mhm.
don't I don't think many people would expect that this is going to end. If you've heard a knock in there, that's clearly we're just getting a parcel delivered, but I'm going to leave
Okay,
somebody
don't
else to
worry.
do that.
I'm
But
sure people
but
will
I think
understand.
I think what we're yeah I think I think we all recognise that there is not a switch that somebody can flick that means that we are going to go back to what life was like in January or February. I think we all recognise that there is going to be some sort of gradual and incremental rise to where we once were. Um, but I think if I had a magic wand and I could say to the government one thing, it would be set out what the next stages look like. You don't have to tell us
Yeah,
when that's happening, but set out what it's going to look like. Because then we can start planning accordingly. What we
yes.
don't want is, right, you've got a week to plan, or this is what it's going to look like.
Mm.
So my understanding is that lockdown is going to be gradually reduced, and that I think we all think that. Um, I would really like government to come out as soon as possible and say these things will not change for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
But what we're looking at changing is going to be X, Y, and Z. Unless somebody finds a vaccine overnight, we are going to be operating in a different
Which
world.
we know isn't going to happen. I would say that's probably one of the few criticisms of the government at the moment. Unlike some other mainland European countries, they've been slow to really sort of deliver a roadmap in terms of coming out of the lockdown.
And what doesn't help is that we've now got the Scottish government looking like they are coming out on the front foot with a roadmap, and then we've got the Westminster government that are being a bit more dovish. So that if I had a magic wand, it would be government. Just tell us what you're thinking. We all understand that there's a concern that as soon as you start talking about coming out, people are going to go out and lockdown break. But I don't buy that. If you come out and say these things will not change, these things we're thinking about, we'll keep you in touch. I think that would really help business to be able to plan, not to enact yet, but to plan for those changes. And then moving back a step, if I could go back 2 months and say to government something that, and there's lots of things that people are going to be concerned about, a lack of PPE, all that sort of stuff. In terms of business, I think we can probably now say that there was a certain amount of ambiguity around the rules that were issued. We had Matt Hancock coming out a couple of weeks ago saying, there's a lot of businesses that shut that didn't need to shut. Well, I think we all, and particularly when it comes to thorough examination and inspection, there were a lot of bits of the economy that understood government directive as you have to shut next week. We asked for clarification on a couple of things, and we've had bits of clarification, but we haven't had all of the detail that we were hoping for. So I think, and that's still there. That ambiguity is still there. So we still have members talking to us saying that, one of the things that the issue did is we issued this letter that's on the website, and we've encouraged members to have it in their cabs, because the sort of well-meaning criticisms of, should you be out, is this essential? Well, yeah, what we do is essential.
Absolutely.
Because we are fundamental parts of these essential supply chains. And, when you talk about the healthcare supply chain or the food supply chain, there is no supply chain unless you overcome gravity. So, we were fundamental parts of that. And there's still things, suppliers, can they operate, and what is social distancing, the difference between a key worker and an essential worker, that you can be an essential worker even if you're not a frontline nurse, And so there's been a few things that hopefully we will not have to learn from them, because this is going to be something that we never experience again. But I think plans for the future, and we can all accept that doesn't mean next week.
Yeah.
But tell us what you're thinking, and just clarification around rules. For me, having an announcement come out that said, they didn't have to shut in the first place is pretty poor, really. That should have been made clear.
Well, let's if you don't mind, just to say, I've stolen my wife's cup. So let's start drilling down a little bit, if you don't mind, Ross. What types of challenges are LEEA members typically facing at the moment?
Yeah, I think there's probably some broad ones and then the sector-specific ones. I think the broad ones are around this overall weakness in demand. We can see that the economy across the board has slowed down, but when you really drill down sector by sector, some sectors have slowed down to a near stop. How grateful we all are that we're not in hospitality at the moment.
I would agree.
And that, and that feeds into retail as well. I've not been down a high street in a long time, but I imagine it's going to be very different in 6 months. How glad I am that I've not got shares in Laura Ashley or, any of these other firms that we probably thought were one step away from Bank of England. So, and when I speak to members, there are some sectors that are I don't know if there's any sector that's untouched, but there are sectors that are more robust. And if you are supplying those more robust sectors, you're feeling the pinch and you're feeling the hardness at the time. If you're working in some of the sectors that are to do with hospitality, to do with that sort of demand of that bit of the service, bit of the economy, then clearly you're going to be facing some more significant challenges. I mean, just things like hotels. My understanding is that basically hotels are shut at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, who'd have thought that? Who could have seen that happening? And so, I mean, you know, and then you throw in the oil price.
Well, that's what,
You know,
$20 Brent crude.
well,
It's the lowest it's been
yeah,
in 15 years.
yeah, and you know, and then you had the Saudi Russia issue. So,
Absolutely.
so that there were issues in production, and now, of course, you know, everybody knows the link between the oil price and gross domestic output, basically the product of a country. And if we're all looking at 35% cuts in what the world are producing, it's going to be less oil required, etc., etc. However, and so that relates to, you know, what's the curve going to look like? How flat is this recovery curve going to look like? And I don't know about you, but I find that I'm my own worst enemy at times by actually watching the news and reading comment, because there's sometimes when I hear promising signs, you know, New Zealand is now COVID-19 free, and
Which
it
is
sounded like
incredible.
so. Oh yeah, and you know, and I know you've got your leadership edition coming out, and
Indeed.
I just thought, you know, there's different types of strength and leadership, because you know Jacinda Ardern, you know, I think we're all going to be studying her for leadership. It was in the future. It was early and hard, and building that team spirit of this is Team New Zealand. And so, you know, how they've dealt with it. And, you know, 5 million is population of Scotland. You know, you know that New Zealand is a big country with the population of Scotland. To be COVID-19 free, it's like, wow. You
It's,
know,
it's remarkable, and they've done an incredibly effective job. I mean, and that can be said also of Australia. I mean, you know, there seems to be
yeah,
a flattening of the curve, and I mean, Justin Bohm, who's obviously the engagement officer for LEEA over in
yeah,
Australia and the wider region, he wrote recently for Lift and Hoist Australasia about this, and recognising that 98% of the population adhere to social distancing, and because of that, you know, there is this flattening of the curve. There's a dramatic decrease in new cases. And he also went on to talk about recovery. And none of us have that crystal ball that you referred to earlier, but
no,
you know, they're talking about a 6.7 drop, 6.8 drop, but a rebound of 6.1. So this is why it's so important, of course, to get on top of things
yeah,
and start looking at recovery and getting back to this new normal that we talk.
yes. It's, you know, it's funny. So the economist in me looks at what that recovery is going to look like, and the levers and the policy issues that governments across the world are going to have. And it's really interesting, because I think most of us in the UK would agree that the furlough package, so the job retention scheme, has been a real shot in the arm, and that it helped a lot of employers that were looking at, you know, a cliff edge, really. So, you know, I think most economists would look at that at the moment and think, well, that was a great policy intervention. Clearly, there's nervousness around the expense of it. My worry as an economist is governments have a tendency to pull out too early, and the real battle is going to be the recovery battle. In terms of the economy, you know, clearly we've got a medical issue going on, you know, a really significant medical issue. And when you're talking about the economy, you feel guilty that you're downplaying the fact that 20,000 people in the UK have lost their lives. This is unprecedented and horrendous. So it does feel churlish to talk about the economy, but, you know, we are talking about the economy. So if that's the caveat, I just look at it and I think, how does the government make sure that it's there as a partner in the recovery, rather than getting to a point where it sort of says, you know, Darwinian economics kicks in now. So I don't know, maybe we are all Keynesians now, but you know, there's this idea that how do we make sure that the UK government and other governments continue to support actors in the economy, so that this is simply an external shock from which we recover, rather than the beginning of a depression that takes us back to sort of 1920s economics. Yeah. So yeah, there are cleverer people than me that are worried about this right now.
I mean, you can't say that our industry is recession proof, of course, because that's been proven wrong. But obviously,
but it's very broad. That's the hopeful thing for our industry, that it's so broad, that we are not nuanced. We are in agriculture, we are in manufacture, we are in hospitality, and then because you know, we as an association are global, and so
absolutely,
yes, it's fair to say that there are, you know, the breadth of the industry, but also the global scope of it is, you know, and that probably, you know, one of the things that I did not expect is in April, which is nearly finished, we had 12 applications to join the association, and
which is
10
quite remarkable, really, isn't it?
of them have gone far enough, so I've dealt with them. Well, I did not expect that. I thought that this would be, you know, I just didn't assume that that was going to be happening. But that sends out some sort of signal that, yes, things are going to be tough. Things are really tough. Things will be tough. But that feels like an important message to me. I've not quite understood what the message is, but it makes me think that actually, you know, the world's not come to a complete stop.
No, sure. I mean, obviously, I mean, you look at things, we talked about oil, but I mean, oil is obviously, you know, a big indicator as to how the global economy is doing.
Yeah.
Of oil, you know, that may have slowed down significantly at the moment, but once that starts coming back, as I say, that will be a yardstick for many other industries, I think. And the one thing that we can
even that's something that, you know, it can just be a bit of a headline, and when you really drill underneath it, it maybe isn't. Well, I mean, was it 18 days in the UK we haven't used a coal-fired power station?
Yeah.
And again, that's because we're using less energy, but we have had a lot of sun, we have had a lot of wind, and so when you're not using fossil fuels, that's the nature of fossil fuels. You have to store them somewhere because you're not using them. So that I think there are the stuff to be unpicked to really understand what's happening out there, I think.
But I mean, we can't get around the fact, just to bring it back, you know, specifically to lifting, that so many of your members and so many of the people that we work with as a publishing company, and the people who read the magazine, of course, you know, are in frontline industries, whether that's and supply chain networks. So that could be supplying food, that could be supplying, you know, essential supplies for health services. I mean, the list goes on, and those people need to be up and running as many are now, but they need to be ready to bounce back quickly, don't they? And that's something that I think I wanted to ask you about. The health and safety executive at HSE, obviously, they've said something that they believe that the social distancing measures shouldn't really be a barrier to thorough examination and testing being carried out. And obviously that's a statutory requirement under LEEA regulations. I mean, are your members showing any signs of having this equipment going beyond testing, or are they worried about decommissioning because they can't test at the moment? I mean, what are LEEA doing to support their members through
So that's a really important thing to stress, that there has been no relaxation or no change to LOLA. So thorough examinations are still a statutory requirement, and that's absolutely crucial to stress. And I think we in the industry probably know that, but what we're talking about is end users here that maybe think that, you know, that it's not a necessity. That's not correct. There has been no relaxation of statutory requirements. We had a lot of questions about this coming in March.
Okay.
And so we put together a frequently asked questions document. It's up on our website. It's up on our website for the world. We're a membership organization, but you know, it's there. Anybody can look at it. One of the joys of being the membership association is that we've got this triage system that means that people can come and talk to us and ask us questions. To talk to Ben Dobbs and his team, they respond within 48 working hours, although this year it's been within 2 working hours. So it's almost been a call center for technical requests, which is incredible.
Yeah.
You know, what a service that is that we're offering to 1,200 members. And it's a bit like, wow, that's
around
the
clock, I guess, is it?
That's working hours in the UK.
Right, okay, beg your pardon.
So as soon as they pick it up, they'll get back to you within 2 hours.
Okay.
But what an incredible service that is that we're offering. But because we get all these questions coming in, it gives us a great sense of intelligence, understanding what the trends within the economy are, what the trends within the industry are. So we were picking up February some questions about this from down in Southeast Asia. Then we were picking up in March, basically as the virus started coming west, really.
Yes.
So we've been able to hopefully get ahead of that curve, in that frequently asked questions are up there. Our website's very different from how it used to look. We've tried to use the website as the shop window, so you can go there and get access on it straight away. In terms of the impact on our industry, social distancing doesn't mean that you can't do anything. It means social distancing. So it talks about, you know, I was in the co-op yesterday. I just have to stand 2 meters away from somebody and, you know, cover my nose, cover my mouth, be sensible. So we've provided advice to members and out to end users that testing, thorough examination should still be happening, and there are ways that it can happen.
Okay.
And that includes social distancing, that includes PPE. You might want to move the equipment to a quarantine zone so that then the inspector can go to the quarantine zone. So this can still happen if there are end users that are thinking, oh, you know, it's impossible. No, that's not correct. Get in touch with us and we will give you a non-commercial view on how you can fulfill your statutory requirements. And of course, and then on the LEEA website, if you're thinking, oh, you know, the normal guy uses isn't at work, or how do I find somebody? On our website, just you can go and find a LEEA member. Just put in your postcode, just put in your address anywhere in the world, and you'll find 5 LEEA members that are close to you. So we think that we're doing everything we possibly can that A, sends out the message that thorough examination still has to happen, B, how you can do it and you can comply to the guidance regulations around social distancing, and then finally C, we're trying to make it as easy as possible so that our members can be found by end users.
Okay, that's great. I mean, and you've touched upon the triage service that LEEA offer its members. Obviously, there's the COPSIL and another guidance or guidance documentation that you offer. Would you like to talk about that or some of those a little more?
Yeah, I think so. It's really important so the triage service that we offer, if I just tell you what it is and then I'll tell you why it's important. So every member of our association has access to technical experts whose job it is to stay on top of standards, to stay on top of legislation. So that if you've got a question or a query, you get in touch with the association and they come back to you. This is our best interpretation advice. So we still expect you to take legal advice when you need legal advice. Our advice isn't binding, but we hope that it's of value to you to have some sort of understanding of what's happening in the world. You can ask as many questions as you want as a member. It's free, it's gratis, it's part of your subscription fee. You know, that is an incredible service. We used to, up until COVID-19, operate on a non-members get a question free as well.
Yes.
We're not doing that at the moment because we're so busy. We're concentrating on our members. So, you know, on its own, what a phenomenal service for a trade association to be delivering. And that completely fits with the history of the association. That's where we began. This is just a modern interpretation of it. And we call it the triage service because you put it in and you get dealt with in a sort of A&E sort of process. However, our triage system is in many ways the insight engine that drives what we do. So I was talking to a guy about the training that we deliver. So LEEA delivers training. How do we make sure that our training is cutting edge, ahead of the curve, relevant? How do we make sure our training is demand led? It's one of my big criticisms. You know, I used to work in the education sector. You used to get colleges that would be delivering courses because they had somebody that could deliver the course. So I heard a horror story once of an IT course that hadn't been changed in 10 years. How can that be right? IT changes every 10 days, let alone 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do we make sure that our courses are relevant? Well, last year we had 1,000 questions come into our triage system. Projections are we're getting 1,500 this year. So every time a question comes in, it goes into the technical team, but that technical team then share it with the findings, with the thought process, with our learning and development team. So you're going to need a course on this or that bit. The course needs change, legislation. Likewise, the audit. An audit's only of value if it's actually checking stuff that's important and relevant and new. So our triage system is a frontline service, but it's also where the brains trust get all of its insight. So in many ways, how do you know that LEEA is producing stuff that's of value? Can you think of any other organisation that's getting 1,000 questions added into it?
Well, I mean, there
That's
are
where we
other
get our real value
organisations
from.
out there, of course. I mean, I don't know the level of support that they're offering, or the types of questions, and I guess the volume of questions that they're getting. But I know MHI are very hands-on. That's the Material Handling Institute of America, and of course, you've got the International Guide Access Federation.
Yeah.
Who are there to support their members too, and always have been proactive. I mean, let me ask you, are questions up?
But the important thing is when the trade association is developing solutions, all of these solutions driven by our members, so they're all demand led. So they're demand led, and that's by the technical committee. Ben had a technical committee last week with 15 members on Zoom. So these are people that know what they're talking about, really, really mulling over issues that are just beyond my brain function. And then we have the Learning and Development Committee, which we're looking for new members to join. Obviously, I have the board. But on top of that, we're getting all of this intelligence in. And together, that's really what puts the association in a very special place.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's powerful. That's powerful information, and it's key to sort of, I guess, carving out a road to recovery, isn't it? And feeding that information back to other members.
Yes. And we are looking at that. We're looking at, it's too early for us to be able to tell what that data is telling us in terms of the recovery.
Okay.
It would just be best guess. Nobody needs another best guess at the moment.
Looking to make
but
that,
we are looking at.
Sorry, are you looking to make some of that freely available beyond membership in the future?
Definitely.
Okay, that's
definitely. Good. Yeah, I think we are a membership organisation first and foremost, but our vision is to raise standards worldwide. We are not going to be bringing in intelligence that we're just going to keep to ourselves on that. That will be LEEA's gift to the world as soon as it's ready to share.
Okay. Well, hopefully we can help you with that in terms of giving you a showcase to pass that on to our readers. I know all would see that as very beneficial.